So I wanted to show you, I've been experimenting with a lot of views, and that's something that's very interesting because I'm trying to like push DALL-E to provide a full diversity of views and see how realistic it is. So I'm just gonna go through very quickly some of the different views so you can get it as an example, and I'll share those with you. And I see people want to ask questions, so maybe.
Yeah, I just want to know that when it suggests different view of main streets, different atmosphere, etc. So you showed four images. Were those four images generated when it give examples, or did you generate it separately?
I ask for example. So like the trick with the prompts is that you can say I want a main street in this city, and then you can say I want a specific view of that main street. And some people have went as far as putting the exact angle of like 60 degrees looking north just to get the different precisions, and it does work. But by default, sometimes he or like they generate whatever comes to mind. It's not always consistent.
Oh, I see. Yeah, what I meant is that when you ask him when you ask it to give me a few examples of Main Street, then it automatically generate four examples and then suggest, oh, you might want to try different atmosphere and angles and etc. Or did it not give you any imagery examples and then you have to do a separate prompt to create these?
I think what happens when you say a main street, show me a main street, I think the default, it focuses on the street view.
Oh, I see.
So the trick is to kind of explore what other views, because one thing I was curious about is, can we do like a Google Street View of this whole thing? Can we say, go to this main street and give me like the different angles? It didn't work, but I tried something else and it worked, so I'll show you. So I'm just gonna go very quickly. This is a street level, and you can ask DALL-E to be more like hyper-realistic, because sometimes you can say I want to see this main street, and it does like some kind of artistic rendition based on something without it being realistic. But that's a viewpoint being on the street, and by hyper-realism is that this, it's pretty, sometimes it's so good, but other times it's not. But if you specify, I want something high definition and hyper-realistic, close to reality, sometimes you get some good results. And this is another example of, I think that's the strength of DALL-E, is really the street view right now, based on what I've seen. Like, look at the facade, the amount of detail of like storefronts. And when you're like looking at issues and how do you support main streets, the facade of stores are very important. So the fact that they provide you this level of detail is interesting, but I'm not sure if it's generic, right? Because I think it was just a generic ask, and this is what I got. If you try to ask the same thing for a specific city, will you get an accurate result? I'm not sure.
Right, like is this supposed to be, is this a part of like Montreal? No, I thought I saw a Canadian flag at one point.
The one before was, yeah.
Okay. But like that is a real street in
Yeah.
Montreal? And do you happen to have like a side-by-side of what it actually looks like?
Well, actually, I thought I lived in this building because I live in Old Montreal, and I compared on Google Maps to see that like, and my building looks like something like this. This looks like Notre Dame Street where I live, but it's not exact. It's
Right.
There is variation.
So is it real English that's on things, or are these sort of like letters that don't make sense?
A lot of time it doesn't make sense,
Okay.
but sometimes it does.
I think it's in French, so therefore these letters don't make any sense.
Well, no, they look like letters. They just don't make any sense though. That's fair.
Are you able,
I don't think French.
One second.
to reference images into, like, plugging in images
Do
to?
you?
Are you able to reference images into your prompts so that it's like more reference to like identical to like the existing conditions of a street? Because
Yeah.
there are, like, I know you mentioned like street views with like Google Maps. That was something I was really interested about this workshop, because there are some people, I don't know the name of the project, but they worked on research where DALL-E was plugged into Google Street Views, and
Oh.
people were able to Like it's like a real prototype,
Wow.
and they're able
Okay.
to create prompts and transform like their
Nice.
street cityscapes. So I was just interested of like what are the condition like existing ways that we could use DALL-E? Is it something where it's like we're just importing images, or is there a way to actually work through creating a plugin with something like Google Street View?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And OpenAI came up with a paper where they describe they can get better visualization when they upload a picture and they ask DALL-E to describe the picture in detail and then use a text to generate the image. So that's something we can try next week when we take pictures and see if it works. And I'm just gonna go quickly here. This is a bird's eye view. You just like get to see, I don't know, like the value, it's more to see the relationship in the different neighborhoods around Main Street. You can get a cross section. So I asked for a village in Montreal to show me the metro. We don't have this here in the middle. It's all underground, so it's not always precise. You can ask for map or satellite view of, I think this was the gay village, which I don't think is accurate, but maybe it is. But that's like different options you can experiment with. Sky view, you see more in the horizon. You can also ask for skyward or upward view. So that perspective helps you see above the street. And that's something I found out when trying to do the Google Street View, and it didn't work. Something interesting for us if in the third session when we're doing the visioning exercise is a historical future. That's something DALL-E suggested. Topographical, just for fun. I don't know the value of that, but just to show you a bit. This is supposed to be Montreal, and I think this is the Mont Royal. It's interesting, just experimenting. So this is where panorama. I asked ChatGPT to give me Google Street View. It says it's beyond my capacity. Then I ask, well, can you give me like a Google Street View image? Also, it says it doesn't work. So I ask, can you just show me a picture as if I'm taking panorama with my iPhone, how it would look, and then I got this. So it's kind of trial and error to see what works.
You said when you started this, you said that you had built like a custom GPT for this IEP course and for DALL-E mainstreams. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by build a custom?
I think there's, DALL-E can explain. I have that question exactly. But just to mention for these, it wasn't a custom GPT. It was just I did the custom GPT just for this session. So like when you're gonna interact with DALL-E, it's gonna provide the image, but also a specific description to help you understand what is presented.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first one is, these images come from putting the prompts in English. Does it work for other languages? And also the aesthetics, it's a very Western aesthetic. Can we get other type of aesthetics?
We can try that. We'll have a chance to try that, but when I've used ChatGPT in French and it works, but I never asked it DALL-E specifically, but something to try. Good question.
And then my other question is, so for getting all these, we need the ChatGPT 4, we need to pay, but then DALL-E, we also need to get credits to get the images, so we have to double pay, or how does it work?
You just pay $20 per month, but I discovered this app called Microsoft Copilot. So you just download it on your phone or on your on the App Store, or you just go to the website collabmicrosoft.com and you can get DALL-E images for free. Basically, you can't get a custom GPT, but I tried it and it seems to work. But there's also mixing with Bing. So it's not all ChatGPT. It's like a mixture of things, but it does work if you want to play around with it. I didn't expect questions showing these images, but these are good questions. I think I'll show you other ones very quickly. The futuristic one, you got a sense, night view, public transit. You can ask for a public transit in Montreal. It made no sense, but shadow study to see like the variation in the street, like of the shadows during the day. When I was experimenting with trying to get a 3D, not a 3D, but the Google Street View, and it wasn't working. I tried to ask ChatGPT to, get me something I can print and cut into from a cube to do it in 3D in real. So I got to print and try to assemble it, but it didn't work. But that's something meta to consider in the future. The potential to actually like do cutouts and have them not just 2 dimension but 3 in 3 dimension.